Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Um, we're a little early. I don't know if you can tell. Some of you who are watching the live stream, bless your heart, you're here. I do apologize for not having it on the normal time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We will not be having the show then. There was, of course, good reason that I'm not doing at the normal time today. I will be at a progressive event later today with members of the TYT Army. So I'll be there. I'll be filming some stuff. So mainly the event, maybe question answer sessions with some of the politicians in our local area. Whatever I find, if it's interesting, I will edit it and throw it up online. So it should be fun. Okay. We're also going to try to get people to sign the Progressive Pledge. So that's really, really important. That, of course, outlines progressive priorities, Medicare for All, Green New Deal, etc. And it puts politicians on the record, saying that they will fight for these priorities, right? They will fight for these policies. So that's why I'm going. That's why it's important. And it's also good to get together with local progressives in the area. So I'll be doing that today. But I wanted to get some stories in because there's a lot of fun stories today, right? Including Ken Cuccinelli versus the Statue of Liberty. That's fun. We have Donald Trump and his secret nukes. Or does he have secret nukes? I don't know. We have, of course, a new poll on undocumented immigrants. And then is Trump's economy going to implode and why? So that's fun. Okay, so let's get to it. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show than normal. As soon as I get the stories done, we're going to get out of here. So no breaks, just get through the stories. I got a few of them for you. And then I'll be out in the event. So let's get going. Let's just jump into it. All right. Now, we all know that President Trump is not a smart man. He's not a very stable genius. And just more proof of that came in a tweet in which he basically blurted out possible national security secrets. Now, in a tweet, the president decided that he was going to mock Russia after 7 people were killed during a nuclear cruise missile test. So now that's already a tragedy. People were killed. These are real people who really lost their lives in what was a nuclear accident, right? So now the president is like, Russia with their missiles. Come on. He said, quote, "The United States is learning much from the failed missile explosion in Russia. We have similar, though more advanced technology. The Russian Skyfall explosion has people worried about the air on the facility and far beyond. Not good." Right. Not good. Moron. Idiot. Dumb. Look, again, you're kind of making light of this, right? By saying, the failed missile explosion. We're learning so much. You don't say, hey, look, sorry that you lost people. Or maybe just not tweet. Just don't tweet at all. But the, of course, dangerous thing came when he said, we have similar, though more advanced technology. Really? Well, that's newsworthy. You think that people, maybe like Russia, would love to know if the Americans have this kind of technology that the Russians are obviously testing, right? It's not smart to announce that thing to other countries, especially on Twitter. What is wrong with you? And the reason, of course, is that you don't, obviously you don't want to tweet this stuff out because you will cause a nuclear arms race. That is literally the last thing that we need. You do not tweet out national security secrets, especially, of course, in order to stroke your own ego. Again, we have better technology. It's better. Oh, do we? For God's sakes. Who would want to tell this moron anything? This is not how presidents act, right? And it is no wonder why people do not tell him anything. Why there are numerous reports of people doing end runs around him to avoid telling him things because he's an idiot. This guy's supposed to be our leader, but he can't help himself. Of course, it's always about his ego. Always, always. Disaster, right? But now, as usual, of course, the internet weighs in with a mix of derision, of course, and wait, do we actually have a secret nuclear program to create nuclear-powered cruise missiles with little mini reactors on board? Well, let's get to those tweets, right? Chris O'Leary says, assuming he's not lying, Trump would seem to be casually tweeting out national secrets. Well, I mean, that is the question, right? Is he lying? Again, he lies constantly. I think he's now been documented in over 12,000 lies since taking over as president. We don't know. And that's the thing about Trump. Is he lying? Well, he's a pathological liar. Then again, he's got an ego and he's a really stupid person and he probably isn't mentally all there anymore. He's mentally deteriorating as we speak, right? And so I don't know. And this is what's scary about this, right? There's more. Aaron Fritchner said, tweeting about the status of secret nuclear weapons research, as one does. Right. As the idiot baby is wont to do. Now, here's a professor of international relations and national security at the U.S. Naval War College. He says this, quote, "It is a bad idea for the president to tell the world the U.S. has secret nuclear-powered super weapons and that we've been lying about that for years, especially if we don't have them, which we almost certainly do not." I love that last part because it's like, wait, we certainly don't have that. I mean, if we did, but we don't. Well, let's hope not. Again, we don't know because the president's a pathological idiot liar. Now, Joe Cirincione says, this is bizarre. We do not have nuclear-powered cruise missile program, as far as we know. We tried to build one in the 1960s, but it was too crazy, too unworkable, too cruel, even for those nuclear nuts Cold War years. Bill Elliott said, did the president just confirm the existence of a missile system with many nuclear reactors on board, eliminating distance limitations, which would be a huge technological feat? And he added, that can fly low and weave around anti-missile shields? It'd be interesting to know. Dan McFadden said if news reports on nature of Russian tests are correct, then the president has just asserted that the U.S. has nuclear-propelled cruise missiles, which, by the way, I don't know for certain, but you would think that this technology would be banned by certain nuclear treaties. But then again, Donald Trump and Russia no longer have a nuclear treaty. So there's that. Now, McFadden finally says, that would be newsworthy. Yeah, it would be. It would be very newsworthy. That's why this is a problem. Now, there's a Reuters DC national security correspondent that also said, is the president of the United States lying, bluffing about our capabilities? We don't have missiles with tiny nuclear reactors, or just revealing our secret weapons to the world. Which is worse? Well, again, that's also the question, right? Now, I would go with actually having these weapons because of the destructive capability, of course. For Trump lying, well, that's just a Tuesday. That's just another Tuesday, right? But again, what would be more dangerous is obviously having the Trump administration having very high-powered nuclear cruise missiles. And that is something that we should all be afraid of. Yikes. All right. Moving on here. So let's go to the Cooch. Now, yesterday, acting head of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Ken Cuccinelli, announced that the Trump administration has a plan to crack down on legal immigration. Now, what their plan would do, and I went through the details in one of a previous video that I uploaded yesterday, but basically the plan would expand the government's ability to reject green cards, visas, and entry into the U.S. for individuals that were deemed likely to become a public charge or use public services like food stamps, Section 8 housing, etc. Right? So basically, poor people. Now, the rule basically changes the definition of a public charge and connects a person's immigration status to their income and use of programs that are taxpayer funded. Now, Cuccinelli then earlier today went on NPR to defend this policy, and he used it in a very interesting way. He decided to change the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty. So now he said, give me your tired and your poor, who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge. Well, now wait a minute. Again, you realize that poor people, they are poor because they don't have money, right? Again, that should be fairly obvious. And if you don't have money, it's kind of hard to feed yourself, which is why we have these programs, right? So now, again, the whole argument is against, well, we don't want the immigrants who are poor coming over here and using our taxpayer money. Well, for one, immigrants do end up paying into taxes. I mean, again, the whole fact that we just had ICE raids at Mississippi factories, where people were working, or the fact that Donald Trump himself employs undocumented immigrants, they're getting money, they're working, which means they're not taking these social services, means they're actually paying money into the tax system to get benefits that some of them may never receive. Those are undocumented immigrants. We're talking about legal immigrants, right? Legal immigrants who went through the front door the way that they're supposed to, and in some cases paid thousands of dollars just to get here, right? Trump administration is saying, well, I don't care. Even if you paid thousands of dollars to get here, if you at all fall on hard times and you need a public program and you try to apply for it, well, then that's enough for us grounds to take away your green card. Well, that's ridiculous and disgusting, right? And look, this is a way, of course, to stop legal immigration to the country. Now, I know Trump or Republicans are like, oh, no, we just don't like the undocumented immigrants. We love legal immigrants, right? We just want people to use the front door. We just want people to go through the legal way and go through the process. No, because they're making the process literally harder. We told you what was going to happen. It is happening, and now everybody's shocked. All I can see right now is the Pikachu meme with his mouth open. I mean, come on. How obvious is this? How obvious is this? But anyway, now, part of the policy also, as I've explained, is super insidious because it says that if the government thinks that one day you might need benefits, then that would be enough grounds to take away your green card or to not issue one in the first place. Now, I wonder if that would be abused, if they could use profiling to figure out who might not be eligible for a card. Now, would they profile the white person coming in here over from Europe, or the Latino, or the person from Central America, or an African coming over here? I wonder. Or even a Middle Easterner. Look, here's the thing, right? For Cuccinelli, right? Okay, we know Cuccinelli is an absolute joke, right? But what he's saying here is not funny. We have a poem. I know poems aren't policy, right? But this has been the ethos of the United States, right? This has been what we've been telling the world. Hey, look, again, it says it right here. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And yet, here's the Trump administration. They look at that and they say, nah, just kidding. No, that's not what we want to do. In fact, here's theirs. Give us your lazy, your rich, your few elite looking for tax breaks, the pampered upper crust in your golden mansions. Send these, cash in hand, to me. We lift our wine glasses beside the golden door. That's what they stand for. Look, that's what they want. A country by and for the incredibly rich. And it's not only wrong and disgusting, of course, but also deeply un-American. I mean, if there were such rules back when our ancestors first wanted to come here, right? None of us would actually be here. A lot of people have come over with nothing in their pocket, but were able to, have the opportunity to do incredibly well. And now you have people, because of that are super wealthy. And you have the Trump administration saying, well, no, we don't want you. We don't want you here if you're not white, basically. And so, if you have money, though, well, then that's fine. But make sure that you're rich first. And that's just, again, super un-American. Okay. Moving on here. As Republicans continue to enact policies against both legal and undocumented immigrants, the majority of American citizens actually welcome immigrants into this country. Now, if you were to watch a Trump rally, if you were to watch some of the Republican pundits, you would have to think, oh no, Americans say we've got a big problem with immigration. A lot of Americans agree that we need to slow down refugees and we need to make sure that we have less people coming into the country. Well, again, that's not true at all. According to a new survey released by the Pew Research Center, a massive majority of Americans actually do love immigrants and want there to be a way for immigrants living in the U.S. already illegally to be able to stay in the country legally. We're talking basically, in a way, amnesty. In a way. Now, of course, there is the caveat where they need to meet certain conditions, right? So now the poll didn't really get into the certain conditions, but I would assume, of course, learning the language perhaps, or at least trying to get a job, right? Now, this is all while the Trump administration wants to crack down on immigration. Now, there were ICE raids in Mississippi that arrested 700 suspected undocumented immigrants, and recently you also had the administration announcing a restriction of green cards. But let me give you some of the numbers here. Now, the survey was conducted from late July to early August, that's before the raids, and found that 72% of Americans want there to be a path to legal status for undocumented immigrants. Even Republicans and Republican-leaning independents agree that there should be a legal way for undocumented immigrants to remain in the U.S. Now, one of the things that they say is, look, okay, if you come here and you work, you should pay taxes, right? Well, good news. Most undocumented immigrants pay taxes. They pay state and local taxes, sometimes federal taxes taken out of their paychecks. They just don't get anything back from it. Again, they pay into Medicare, Social Security, but since they're non-citizens, they'll never get that back unless they become naturalized citizens. So, look, we've already met that condition. Great. Now, there's more here. The View, what's interesting is that view, right, from Republicans and independents, 54%, that's still a majority, say that they must have a pathway or they want a pathway to citizenship for immigrants. That's actually decreased since 2017. As Donald Trump has increased his hateful rhetoric against, immigrants, that's only fallen by 5%, 5 points. That's actually kind of shocking. That still you have a majority of Republicans that are like, I don't know, man. Look, undocumented immigrants should still have a pathway to citizenship that they should be able to earn. Okay. All right. So there you go. Now, 9 in 10 Democrats, and this is where the difference is, and Democratic leaning independents support a legal way for undocumented immigrants to become citizens, which has been steady since 2017. 72% is a really huge number. Nearly 3/4 of this country disagree with the Republican Party's position on undocumented immigrants having a pathway to citizenship. Now, to me, that kind of shows that we have a little bit of an extremist in the White House that doesn't represent most Americans, the views of most Americans, right? Look, before Donald Trump, the Republican Party even tried to do a pathway to citizenship. Marco Rubio. Then again, of course, Marco Rubio, because of the base, ended up tanking his own bill that had a pathway to citizenship in it. There were numerous bipartisan attempts to do this, which ended up because, of course, the extremist base didn't, ended up leading these Republicans to worry about being reelected. So they spiked the bill. So now there's more, and here's more very significant differences between the Republicans, Democrats, and most of the country versus more of a minority of the country. 71% of Democrats and leaning independents thought it was very important to provide safe and sanitary conditions for asylum seekers. Now, that should be a no-brainer. If we are going to hold asylum seekers in these facilities, well, you need to make sure that they are safe and sanitary, right? Look, that they have access to, and we're not saying that put them up in a 5-star hotel like the Hilton or maybe Trump Tower. No, we're not saying any of that. What we're saying is that they need to have access to soap, clean water, food, places to sleep, like beds or cots, something, right? But of course, the Trump administration had argued, and I showed you a video of this, that no, toothbrushes or toothpaste and soap and beds, well, they shouldn't be considered, right? We shouldn't have to offer those to have safe and sanitary. And they were making this argument before 3 judges that were like, wait a minute, how can you not have soap and toothpaste and call it safe and sanitary? But it's the argument that they're making, and of course the polling reinforces that. Only 32% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents said that it's very important to provide safe and sanitary conditions for these asylum seekers. Now, again, asylum seekers, remember, they're literally fleeing their homes because of, in many cases, violence. The violence in some cases directly caused by U.S. meddling in Central America. Again, you have the drug war. You have, coup in Honduras. Again, U.S. meddling, helping to topple some of these countries' leaders. A lot of left-leaning leaders, by the way, end up getting toppled. And so you have to remember that. You have to put that in context of why they're leaving their countries and making this perilous journey to the United States. And yet, over 70% of Republicans say, we don't care if it's safe and sanitary. In fact, we would prefer to not put an emphasis on that and holding these people. They could go and they could be mistreated. We can put them in cages. We can make sure that they, don't have beds or toothpaste or anything like that. We don't really care about that. I mean, it's insanity, right? So now, here's the thing. For one, we should not put them in cages at all. I think we should reverse the zero tolerance policy and increase immigration judges. Now, on the immigration judges question here, right, which would, of course, reduce the caseload, get people, into the United States who qualify to be in the United States, who are not criminals, and then kick out of the system so-called asylum seekers, and I'm going with the right-wing talking point so that I can get them on their level, right? So, okay, you claim that there are Middle Eastern people, there are terrorists, MS-13, that are coming in with the asylum seekers, right? Okay, well, if you have more immigration judges, they can look at the information and they can determine if these people are indeed dangerous faster And so we can kick them out of the system and deport them back to their own countries and reduce the amount of people that are being held in these ICE detention facilities. More immigration judges. So now, when asked about increasing the number of judges handling asylum cases and how important it is, 58% of Democrats said it was very important. Only 45% of Republicans said it was very important. So there's a difference here, right? And that gets, of course, to the real issues, right? Republicans do not want people to seek asylum. They think the problem is not the meddling or the danger and the stuff that's going on in these countries. They just think it's not our problem to deal with it, even though they're coming, of course, to our border. And in a lot of cases, we have caused a problem in the first place. Significantly more Republicans than Democrats said it was very important to reduce the number of people coming to the U.S. to seek asylum. 65% said it's very important for Republicans, 24% for Democrats. And more importantly, make it harder for asylum seekers to be granted legal status. And that's 40% very important for Republicans, 10% for Democrats. So understand, it's not about the issue, dealing with the issues that cause people to seek asylum, right? The war on drugs, backing right-wing coups, being the main arms supplier for the cartels in Mexico through not regulating gun purchases like straw purchases in America. Republicans would rather not solve these problems, and I'm talking about the politicians, right? They'd rather not solve the problems and make it harder for people to come in and claim asylum. They do not want people coming here. And because there is a significant number of people who are racist. And Coulter, again, she says all the time, these people coming in from South America or Central America, they have a peasant culture. They're adding to the browning of America. Tucker Carlson talked about the white replacement conspiracy theory, right? That, Latinos are being funded to come in here and replace white people. Fox and Friends talks about how dirty and diseased these people are, how filthy they are, how disgusting they are. On and on and on. Donald Trump talks about invasions constantly. I wonder why they don't want people coming in and claiming asylum. And the overall answer is because they don't see them as human beings. Okay. One more here for you guys. All right. So it appears the economy is heading headlong right into a recession. Now, that's according to economists at Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and Moody's Analytics. Now, and they say that it's all thanks to Donald Trump. Now, experts at these financial institutions, they all point at Donald Trump's trade policies as being the biggest driver towards taking the economy towards a recession, right? Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, said on Monday, quote, "I think recession is increasingly likely. I'd put the odds at just over even for a recession between now and the end of 2020. So that's 50%, assuming the president follows through on his tariff threats." Okay, now what's interesting is that, look, there's no reason that Trump won't increase the tariffs because he's not getting what he wants, right? And also because he doesn't know how his tariffs actually work. Again, he continues to repeat the lie that it's the Chinese that are paying the tariffs. No, the Chinese people do not pay tariffs. It's the importers that are paying the tariffs, right? And there are things, of course, that the United States imports from China. Now, what happens when the importers pay the price? Well, they ended up passing that increase off to the consumer. So I guess in the end, we pay for it. It's kind of like a tax on Americans. So that's how that works. Donald Trump doesn't seem to get how that works. And of course, if you don't understand how increased prices on consumers will end up hurting the economy, then you don't understand anything about economics. Now, Jan Hatzius, chief economist at Goldman Sachs, also said that the trade war with China is also likely to hurt U.S. growth more than previously forecast. He said, fears that the trade war will trigger a recession are growing. 2 days later, Bank of America economists said the chances of a recession had risen from 20% to about 33%, so a little bit more optimistic than Moody's, adding that our model likely does not fully capture the threat of U.S.-China trade relations or tensions spiraling into a more severe trade war, which we view as the biggest downside risk for the U.S. economy. We are worried, they wrote. Okay, so look, should you be worried about a recession? Yes, I think you should. We have an idiot running the White House who was making ridiculous, trade rules. Okay, instead of increasing trade and helping with our trade imbalance, our trade deficit, he's actually made it worse. And again, he has hurt farmers in the Midwest from these tariffs. Now, in response to some of these tariffs, China has stopped completely buying agriculture products from the United States, choosing to go somewhere else and to make deals with other countries. Well, that's a big sector of the economy that has just lost out. And if you think $16 to $20 billion worth of bailouts to farmers is going to fix this now long-standing problem, then that's just simply not correct. So they are right to be worried. Now, there are other warning markers that I've seen that they do not necessarily talk about. And that's, of course, the general economy, where you have, of course, stagnant wages along with increasing wealth and income inequality. Now, you had the tax cuts for the rich, for example, that were passed. 83% of that went to the top 1%. And whatever economic stimulus had come out of the tax cuts, which is usually short term, is starting to peter out. Okay. Not only that, but of course, since 2008, there's been very little regulation on the banks, on the same banks, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, etc., that caused the last recession. Now, what we have a problem with is massive speculation. We have a problem with derivatives, credit default swaps. They're all still a thing, and they're all still fairly unregulated, right? And there's a reason for that, because after 2008, they passed Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank was incredibly weak to begin with, but since then, it has been chipped away by Republicans and corporate Democrats that are saying, oh, the regulations on the banks, they're too tough. We need to peel back some of these regulations and allow them to do more high-risk speculative trading. Well, no, we don't. That's terrible. We should not be doing that. That is the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be increasing regulation on the banks. We should be separating investment banking with commercial banking. That's another thing. That's Glass-Steagall. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We should also have a financial transaction tax on a lot of these speculative trades to kind of slow it down and reduce, of course, commodity trading. But that's just some of the things that we should do that we're obviously not. Now, some of the other problems, of course, is stagnant wages and really slow growth. So what's going to happen is not going to be good, right? Already, GDP is projected to slow to 1.8 in the fourth quarter, right? 1.8%. Donald Trump promised to be 3%. And even that's not awesome. Job growth has also fallen from 220,000 a month last year to 140,000 in recent months. If it goes below 100,000, the level of job creation won't be enough to supply the growing labor market. And of course, you'll have unemployment that starts to go up. Now, we've already seen also a lot of job layoffs from companies who benefited very mightily, I should say, from the Trump tax cuts. You have places like Carrier that laid off, even though they made special deals. You have Harley Davidson. You have AT&T. You have GM that just shut down a plant in Ohio. So you have all these different layoffs of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, And then where do these people go? They end up going into low-wage service sector jobs. So the economy right now, it's not, again, if you look at it from a wealthy person's perspective, if you only look at how Wall Street's doing, then you would say, oh, we're doing pretty good. Or if you just look at some of the raw numbers, oh, look, unemployment's down. But you also have to look at some of the long-term trends and some of the systemic problems inside of our system. You also have, again, speaking of debt, right? Student loan and personal debt. That could end up being the catalyst, just like mortgages. It could be the catalyst for a next recession. Again, over $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. That surpasses old credit card debt. That's also part of the consumer debt bubble. One of these are going to burst. So there are a lot of issues, right? So now, of course, MAGA people watching this, some of them are probably laughing because they don't see the warning signs. And we've seen this before. We've seen a lot of these warning signs before, back before 2008. And what we also saw people laughing it off, saying, oh, no, we've got a strong economy. What are you talking about? No, we've got the best economy, and it's only going to continue to surge forward. Well, that's not the case. It wasn't the case then, and it won't be the case now. I believe there will be another recession. It's just a matter of when it will happen. Will it happen in 2020? Will it happen in 2022? A lot of these experts, these economists are saying in between that window, it is very likely that it could happen if we don't correct course. And if we don't correct course, if we continue with the status quo, it will happen. And a lot of people will end up being extremely hurt by this. Okay. Look, again, it's a bit of a short show, but again, I do have a lot to get to, a lot to do today. So I'm going to head out. Thank you guys for watching. Please give us a like if you haven't already. We'll have the clips up later today for the people who didn't get to the stream. So everybody should be able to enjoy that. All right, guys. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.